We're going to turn those dumplings into pot stickers. Let me just get some of these pop-ups out of the way. And, you know, as Vince also said, this is meant to be interactive. So we're all adults here. You guys control your mutes, turn them on, turn them off. If you've got questions relating to what I'm showing you with our dumpling recipe, please fire them off at me. But if you have any general questions about cooking, whether it's something that went wrong with dinner last week or something that's sticking around in the back of your freezer that you have no idea what to do, please use me. I'm happy to be a resource for you all through our time together. As mentioned as well, fire off any questions you got to me. We've also got some amazing people in the background keeping an eye on that chat room to field your questions as well. And to give you a quick little background, so again, my name is David Kirschner. I'm the executive chef and CEO of Dine DK Private Dining, based out of the wonderful city of Jersey City, New Jersey. We provide private dining services with an amazing team of Michelin-trained chefs that we work with to plan out custom events for our clients and send our chefs all over the tri-state into people's homes to really create some really unique culinary experiences. Obviously, given the environment right now, our chefs are being tested. We are taking every caution and COVID protocol into mind when we're providing our services as well. We also do these virtual cooking classes on a regular basis, along with private chef domestic staffing services too. So without further ado, let's cook. Let's make some pot stickers together. I don't want to lose anybody in the mix while we're going through this class. So due to the audio cutting in and cutting out that happens on Zoom, when I ask you guys questions, if everybody's with me, if everybody needs me to take a pause, really thumbs up, thumbs down, one of the easiest ways to get your message across. So with that being said, let's test drive our system. Is everybody ready to start cooking? Awesome, that's lots of thumbs, we love that. Okay, great. So to start off, we're gonna make dumplings. We're gonna fold dumplings from scratch. We could have gone as far as making the dumpling wrappers themselves, which is definitely a doable thing, but to make things a little bit easier for everybody tonight, we provided all of that for you. So by a show of thumbs, who's ever folded their own dumplings before? Couple? Great. All right, cool, great. So this will be a bit of a new experience for most people. So let's start going through this together. To begin, I think everybody needs to grab out just like a medium to large bowl. And there's a lot of different ways to do dumplings. As we know, dumplings is just a category of food that has endless possibilities, almost as far as your imagination can take you. In the summertime, I love doing corn and tofu dumplings, super light, super fragrant. Cabbage, carrots, ground turkey. The crumbled tofu is such an amazing thing too after you press it down and marinate it really well. So whichever filling you're going to be using, totally up to you. I gave you guys a couple different options here. I'm going to be doing the ground pork over on my side, but whichever protein you're going to be playing with or tofu you're going to be playing with, let's put half a pound of that into our big bowl. Okay. So dumplings are supposed to be a really clean expression of the filling itself. So with the protein that I'm doing, I'm going pork. The same recipe applies for everybody else. We're just seasoning it just to help it kind of stand up a little bit stronger on its own. So to the pork, to the tofu, to whatever you are using on your side, we're going to be adding chives. So very classic chive dumpling. We love the kind of bite that you get from fresh chives. You might have gotten the regular American variety that are long and slender. If you've never seen these before, they actually match my apron really, really well. These are called garlic chives. So you might find them in some Asian specialty stores. They're flatter leaves. And the smell is like so garlicky. It's kind of amazing. It brings a lot of complexity to this type of dish. So what we're going to do is we need about a half cup of fresh chives, just thinly cut. So as thin as possible, just go right through your chives as small as humanly possible until we have about a half cup's worth, which is going to be about a yay bunch. You know, I'm giving you guys recipes and amounts as we go through this to help things along. But really, you know, this is cooking off the cuff a bit. So if you have a little bit less or a little bit more of these different items we're going to go through, you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings, and everything's still going to be super delicious in the end.
Chef David, I have a question.
Please.
So this is the only thing I messed up on, but I overlooked the from your pantry section, and I just thought we needed garlic.
Okay.
I have an onion, so I don't have these chives is my question. I do have an onion. Should I do that or just nix the whole idea of it?
I would probably just nix the idea of it unless you have, say, like freeze-dried chives or dried chives or dried parsley, fresh parsley. This is
Well,
more of like an herby thing.
I might have dried parsley.
Oh, so why don't we use some dried parsley? I would say maybe like 2 hefty tablespoons
Okay,
to
got
get you
it.
there.
Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. All right, so I've got my chives cut down now. We're just going to take those, and this is very simply enough. Just going to add them straight on into our bowl with our pork, or tofu, or turkey, whatever you plan on using. All right, so then we're going to start with our seasoning. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more as we get into our dipping sauce for this, but when we're talking about classic Asian cooking, in this case, a little bit more Szechuan style Chinese cooking, we're not going to just put in kind of pinches of salt per se. We look to the Asian kind of sauce pantry of fermented, really beautiful, complex sauces to pull out that umami, to pull out that salt and sweetness that we're looking for in different dishes. So to season this, as opposed to doing that pinch of salt, we're going to go 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce. So that's going to bring all that salt and seasoning we're looking for. Now we want to get a little aromatic. So we've got fresh garlic as well as ginger. So for garlic, I want everybody to grab out 1 clove. So got my 1 clove right here. I'm going to peel it down, but we're going to want to basically mince this as fine as possible so it blends really nicely into our mixture. Too fast. How much soy sauce? Great comment. So 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce. I'll give you guys a second to catch up on that. Looks like a few people are still measuring. So for these next steps, ginger, garlic, such beautiful flavors. We're going to try to mince these down as fine as possible. You can easily do this with a knife, just going through and chopping in as small as you can. You could use a garlic press, or if you've got a microplane or one of these kind of super fine rasps around, this is one of my favorite things to use for this task as well. So, we want about 1/2 tablespoons worth of minced garlic. So really just 1 clove will get you there. And I'm just gonna, like I said, do it right on this little microplane. If you're using one of these microplanes, definitely keep an eye on my technique. It's the safest way to use it. And by that, I mean, microplane gets held steady and whatever you're using on the microplane is what gets moved. Once you start reverting that or reversing that, then things start getting a little crazy. Also, most of your product is going to be stuck within there. Do not dig your finger in there to get it. These edges are crazy, crazy sharp. Just give it a little tap on your bowl. Or if you have your product in your hand still, you could always tap that on there to help get it out. And that's all you really need to do. All right, so that's our garlic. Lovely. Now ginger. So we need, what we got here? About 1/2 tablespoons worth of ginger. Another good chef trick for you. Whenever we do these classes, I always like giving you guys at least 2 or 3 good kind of high level tricks to bring into your own cooking. This is one that changed my world many, many years ago. Fresh ginger typically comes with this nice papery peel on it. Most people will take a vegetable peeler to it or a knife and just start cutting it off, and you lose half your ginger in the process. This little fancy tool right here, teaspoon. Everybody's got it. Use it. All you got to do is just scrape the outside of your ginger, and you're going to see the peel will come off. The thinnest amount of peel will come off, and you'll have all your ginger intact. And it makes your hands smell really, really lovely, like ginger too. So this also, as I said, we're going to go, we're going to go 1/2 tablespoon's worth of fresh ginger. Again, finely minced. I'm going to go back to my microplaned rasp to make this really nice and fine. But again, by hand, by garlic press, anything like that can work as well.
Chef, quick question.
Please.
If we're using a ginger grape, should we squeeze out all the juice, leave some juice?
Leave the juice. We like the juice.
Leave all juice, great.
Love the juice.
Thanks.
Cool. And I'm actually gonna knock this one out by hand. A little bit quicker on my side. Yeah, all that ginger juice. I mean, it's just there's so much flavor in there. It's almost like, not to totally take it off topic, but like when you make latkes or potato pancakes and you're grating onions and all that juice that comes out of it, like that's the secret of it. So love capturing all that flavor that we possibly can. So one of the things I didn't really kind of lay out to you guys just yet, when we go to actually pan fry these dumplings up and turn them into pot stickers, I'm going to show you a really, really cool technique. It's called crispy skirt. So basically, instead of just using water to steam them out, we're going to work a little bit of flour into that water. And after we steam these and we continue to cook them so that they turn back into kind of a frying phase, we're going to be left with this really thin, delicate kind of starch, crispy layer to the bottom. It's actually going to link all of our pot stickers together. It's a super traditional technique. Most of the time you see this on the street, like in street food. And we're going to do it all together today. So I'm really excited to show you guys what that's all about. I think you're going to get a kick out of it. Just amplifies up the crunch factor on the pot stickers to the next level. All right. So now we got our ginger cut down, nice and fine.
I have to say, this ginger trick is amazing. This is life-changing.
Right? Glad that's working for you, Vince. Awesome. All right. Next up, what do we got? So next up, we're going to use a little bit of toasted sesame oil. So ideally, what you guys have at home is this really nice dark colored sesame oil. This has got all that big, deep sesame flavor going on in there. Sometimes at the store, you can find almost what looks like canola oil or vegetable oil labeled sesame oil. It's good for sauteing in and frying in, but it does not bring the flavor and pack the punch that this does. So to our mixture, got it right here. 1 teaspoon. I'm just going to eye this out for a little drizzle. And that's going to get us where we got to go. Then, last but not least, we're going to take a little bit of cornstarch. So 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. And we're going to work that into our mixture as well. The cornstarch is really here to kind of bind things together. And especially if you're going down the road, actually for all 3 of these, if you did turkey, if you did tofu, or if you're doing pork, all of our proteins are going to push out a fair amount of liquid when we are cooking them up. You know, just as the protein cooks, water is going to come out, juice is going to want to come out. Having this cornstarch in the mix is going to help almost thicken the sauce inside of our dumplings, so everything stays really nice and juicy and prevents our beautiful pot stickers from getting soggy. Anti-pot sticker. Want to keep sogginess down.
I think people are still chopping some of their ginger. So if we could just go down a little bit. And then also just to let everyone know, as Chef David's going through the recipe, we're posting it in the chat too. So you have all of the measurements there as well. So you don't have to worry about looking at your recipe card either.
Perfect. All right, I will give everybody a beat for a second and catch up. All right, how about by a show of thumbs, who's got cornstarch already in their bowl? Got it. Jade and Mike, I see you. I hear you. All right, so we'll give everybody just a minute to play catch up. All right. No worries, no worries. And I mean, we're basically at the end. Once we get that cornstarch in there, we're just mixing things up. And then we're going to get ready to start folding things. I think somebody raised their hand. Christine, feel free if you want to unmute yourself. You're more than welcome to shout out any questions you got.
No question. We're good. Thank you.
No worries. We're here for you. Anything you need. Support line. This is like next level turkey, you know, Thanksgiving Day hotline. I'm just here with you guys, answering any questions you might have that come up along the way. All right. Okay, looks like we're starting to get there. A few people. All right, why don't we do a little temperature check of the room? If the ginger's in the bowl already, let me see a thumbs up. Great, cornstarch in a bowl, thumbs up. Nope, Okay, we're just about there. Perfect. I love the amount of kids that are in the room today cooking along with us. This is easily one of those recipes that is incredibly family friendly. You know, you make the mix together. You can even do multiple different fillings and just get the whole family around the island, kitchen counter, kitchen table, start handing out dumpling wrappers, and everybody can just start folding up. And you'll see when we do the folds, there's really no rhyme or reason. I'm going to show you kind of a traditional fold with some pleats on each side. But really, as long as you close the dumpling and there's not a lot of air trapped inside of it, you're going to work. You know, you're going to have a delicious dumpling waiting for you at the end. All right, great. So, okay, everybody, I believe it's got cornstarch in their bowls now. Just to recap what we got going on in here. 1/2 pound of our protein. I personally am working with ground pork. You guys may have something different going on in your bowls. We got a 1/2 cup of fresh chives or garlic chives, 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce, a 1/2 tablespoon each of ginger and garlic that was minced down super fine, teaspoon of toasted sesame oil, tablespoon of cornstarch. That's it. That's it. The beauty of this, especially the Asian pantry that we're talking about in a little bit as we get into our dipping sauce, is you buy these bottles and you're repeating the same ingredients in different capacities when you're doing Asian cooking. So it seems like a lot of ingredients, but at the end of the day, they're all going to do well for you in your pantry. All right, so let's go ahead and mix this up. You can use a spoon. You could throw a glove on your hand and get in there and mix it up, whichever works best for you. And you can kind of work it a little bit. We really want to break down that meat or that protein that you're using and make sure everything's really nicely dispersed. What I love is how the sesame oil kind of comes up in the air and really gets inside your nostrils. You know, something special is going to come out of this. All right, fantastic. So this is what I'm working with right now. Nicely spread out, nicely evenly combined, looking good. All right, how the kids doing? If you're a kid and you're mixing it up, give me a thumbs up. Nice, well done. All right. Cool, so now that we have our filling, let's just set this aside for a moment. We're gonna let it in essence just marinate for a few minutes. We'll put together our dipping sauce, our little ponzu, and then we'll come back and we'll start folding up dumplings, pan roasting them up, and we'll kind of get the show going. So once your mixture is finished being mixed up and kind of set aside, why don't you all give me a thumbs up, and then we'll know that we're all on the same page to move forward to the next step. That looks great, Jade and Mike. I see that. And always feel free to show off your hard work to the class. It's very much a safe zone. Nobody will rag on you or make fun of what's going on there, unless you ask for it, because Vince is a bit of a smile on his face over there. I don't know if he wants to start start roasting people in some capacity. No, that looks fantastic. Lovely. Jen, Ella, well done.
Yeah, I'm looking through each photo trying to see, who I can, Looks like Anastasia, Teddy, and Yaya. You guys are working hard over there. I like it.
See that. Look at that. Lindsay's got the little one up on the countertop. Nothing like little child labor when it comes to getting dinner together. All right, fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about our dipping sauce. So we're going to repeat a lot of those same seasoning ingredients that we used for our filling in this sauce. So this sauce, Ponzu. Ponzu, very simply, is a citrus soy-based sauce. When we talk about the Chinese pantry, again, I was talking before about, we're using sauces to kind of channel our sweetness, our sourness, our saltiness. And that's what it's all about with Chinese cooking. It's about keeping these flavors in balance with one another. So here's kind of the last big master tip that I hope you guys will put it to good use. Whenever you're doing, say, a stir fry at home, or you're trying to do some kind of Asian dipping sauce, the simplest sauce that you will never go wrong with is going to be equal parts soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, and this is a product called mirin. So mirin is basically rice wine, so sake, that a lot of sugar has been added to. So it becomes almost a syrup of sorts. So this is kind of this is our sweetness. Rice wine vinegar. Mine right now, I'm using a brown rice wine vinegar. This is my acidity, and soy sauce is my saltiness. If I use these in equal parts, I will never go wrong. And you could always add a little cornstarch in the mix, toss that in with your sauteed vegetables. You're gonna have the most perfect stir fry sauce of all time. So again, equal parts, salty, sour, sweet, soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, mirin. So with that spirit, we're gonna take that as our baseline, and then we're gonna kind of expand on it to get something a little bit more complex for this dipping sauce. So for our purposes, let's just take a small bowl. We're gonna start with 1 teaspoon of just granulated sugar. So we're gonna kind of do 2 different styles of sweetness going on here. All right, so 1 teaspoon of granulated sugar in the mix, perfect. Now for that next level acidity, because whenever we fry something, we want our sauce to be a little more acidic to really help cut through some of that extra fattiness that's going on there. It kind of makes things feel a little bit lighter. So we're gonna bring some citrus into the mix. So I've got fresh lime. I want about 1 tablespoon of fresh lime juice. For me, this big lime, it's gonna be about half a lime. And I like going the lime juice right on top of the sugar, because then if I give this a little bit of a stir, it's gonna help me dissolve my sugar really quickly. So let's just give that a little stir, and you'll see your sugar is gonna almost instantly start dissolving in there. It's not fully dissolved, no big deal.
Somebody asked if they don't have lime, can they substitute with lemon?
Lemon, orange, mandarin, clementine, whatever you got. Any citrus is gonna be good. This is the type of thing where even if you have different citruses, say you had a half an orange that was cut and you have a half a lime sitting around too, mix the 2 together, make it your own. Total fan of that. All right, so again, now in the spirit of just keeping things in balance, we're basically gonna do 1 tablespoon of like the next 3 ingredients. So we've got our mirin, so our sweetened rice wine, 1 tablespoon. We've got our soy sauce, also 1 tablespoon. Our rice wine vinegar. You know, the rice wine vinegar that you have might be clear. I have that actually in the pantry also over here. This is a really kind of cool product that if you go to a Japanese grocery store or Asian grocer, you can find this brown, or they sometimes call it black vinegar. It's also rice wine vinegar. It's got a lot more complexity to it than the light colored one. Also 1 tablespoon of the rice wine vinegar. And then that's basically our baseline of flavor. Now we want to kind of make it a little bit more aromatic. So we're going to do a little dash, so 1/4 teaspoon of our toasted sesame oil. And this, I gave you a guidance for a half teaspoon of sriracha. If you like it spicier, go heavier. If you got kids around and they're not digging the spice, leave it out. You know, you very much can make the call here for yourself. But I like going about a half teaspoon's worth. Little squeeze. All right, then we're just gonna take a little spoon, just give that a little stir, get everything nicely combined, and then taste this. You know, take that spoon and see where you're at. Love it. It's acidic, it's punchy. It's going to cut through all that fried pot sticker really well, but that fresh lime or fresh citrus, whatever you decide to use, just wakes up the whole thing. So super delicious. And like I said, if you just put like a little bit of cornstarch in this, you can use this sauce as a stir fry sauce as well. If you pan roast some tuna and you want to use this as like a dipping sauce for a sushi type of thing. So many different ways to use this. Okay. Now let's get into the fun nitty gritty.
Sorry, we have 1 quick question. If we don't have sriracha, can we use curry powder, chipotle?
Chipotle powder would work great. Chipotle adobo, you could do a little teaspoon's worth of that in there, or half teaspoon's worth of that in there. If you don't have any of that and you just have crushed red chili flakes, a lot of times I'll use that in place of it as well. That almost acts like a Korean chili flake of sorts.
I'm
So
excited
really,
to hear that.
anything spicy is going to work really well in that capacity.
Yeah, excited to hear that. Definitely gonna add some chili flakes.
Do it. Okay, now let's get into the fun part. All right, we're gonna fold some dumplings. Let's talk about our fancy cook word, mise en place. Means everything in its place. It's kind of the backbone of let's get organized before we start working. We've got our dumpling filling right here. I want everybody just to get a small container of water. We're gonna use this to help seal the dumplings. So if you got a small bowl, great. Got a coffee mug, go for it. Just something to hold water and then you can dip your fingers into. I think we just had a question about wrappers that was just posed, Abby, if you don't mind.
Yep. If you don't have wrappers, can you just save the inside or can you fry it like a meatball? So basically somebody's saying if you don't want to put it in a wrapper, can you fry it like a meatball?
Yeah, I think you could. I think if I was going to go that route, I might add maybe another tablespoon of cornstarch and maybe a little egg white to it just to make sure it's got that binding capacity. But yeah, that should work. Okay, first dumpling folk, let's find a tray. This is what we're going to put our finished dumplings onto. I like lining it with a little bit of tin foil or parchment paper to help keep things clean. You're very welcome, Catherine. Thank you. Great question. Then to prevent our dumplings from getting soggy and sticking to our tray and also to help amplify a crunchiness, we're just going to take a little bit of cornstarch. As we don't sprinkle a little bit of cornstarch down on our tray. So keep, like I said, things from sticking. And then when we go to pan fry them, it'll add an extra level of crispiness to the mix as well. All right.
Chef David, I have a question real quick.
Please.
I have square wrappers, so should I either cut them into circles or when you're letting us know how to fold them, can you just let me know how to do square one?
Totally. Yeah, don't cut them down. It's going to end up making it more difficult because you're going to run out of like room to play with the edge of the wrappers.
Okay.
But I'll give you a quick demo of what you can do with the squares
Cool.
as we start folding. You are very welcome. Okay. Just for spacing purposes, I'm just going to swap out these two bowls here. This bowl, big bowl is kind of taking over my cutting board. All right, so now everybody should have their dumpling wrappers. So what I'm working with are just these classic gyoza pot sticker wrappers. A lot of times you find these in the freezer sections of your grocery stores. So they're not overtly hard to find, but sometimes it takes a little bit of searching. What I like to do is while I'm working on them, I just wet a paper towel, put it under the sink, squeeze out all the excess, and keep this draped over the wrappers as I'm working so that things don't get too dry on us. Because if these just sit out in the open, they will start to dry out and kind of curl up. All right, so I'm gonna show you guys the first one. So once everybody gets settled, let me give everybody a second. Great. Lindsay and family, I see all those sleeves getting rolled up. Nice, looks like somebody's ready for action. Just checking in on everybody. Looks like everybody's good. Awesome, okay, let's do this. So I'm gonna show you guys the first one. I'm gonna do one like this, nice and wide angle. Then I'm gonna do a little bit of a close-up cam and I'll show you really intensely kind of how you can do different folds. But for the most part, like I said earlier, just gonna repeat myself, don't get too hung up on making them look overtly perfect. I always like to say, along with fresh pasta, same rule applies. They shouldn't be perfect or else people aren't gonna think you actually made them at home yourself. So a little bit of rusticness is a beautiful thing when you get to here. So one of the things that I see a lot of people doing wrong is they use too much filling. So all we want is about a teaspoon's worth. So if I were to put this inside, that's what I'm talking about. I still have about an inch, a little over an inch, kind of on every side of my wrapper available to me. So I wouldn't recommend going any heavier than this with your filling or else you might have issues closing it and you just want to kind of keep things in balance nicely. So I'm going to demo the first one, like I said, then I'll do a little close up and show you guys a little bit tighter. So now I'm going to dip my finger in my water. and I'm going to run a little water all along the edge. These wrappers have so much cornstarch already inside them that you don't need to make a slurry or use egg whites, things like that to close them. Just some water on there activates all that starch and makes things really easy. My next move, I'm going to kind of fold it like a taco and just kind of pinch the top. So I'm just pitching it in that one place right now. I haven't started to kind of push it out in any way. Now, as I said, we want to keep the air out. So as I'm playing with this, I'm going to come around here on the edge a little bit. So as I'm playing with my little kind of pinch taco right now, the first move that you do classically is a crimping move. So you're kind of working with just one side of the wrapper, kind of folding it onto itself and then pinching at the top. We want to pinch pretty intensely because we want that layer that is going to be double thick to actually be squashed back down to that singularly. So then you continue to kind of fold and push in. And while we're doing that, we're kind of working from the filling outward to squeeze out any excess air. Then you end up with something with a little crimps on one side of it. Then I'll repeat again, this side of my wrapper is fully open. So then I'm going to repeat on the other side. Again, pinching, things get a little dry. Could add a little more water on the inside. Pinch. Like I said, I'm going to zoom in for you guys in just a moment. And that's kind of your first move of dumpling dum. Great. So we're fully sealed up. I got no openings. Good to go. So that's going to go down here on my tray. Let me show you guys again. Like I said, this time we're going to go for the extreme close-up. Hello. Oh, too close. All right. So with my head out of the picture, again, I'm going to take this guy. Ooh, there we go. I'm going to go about, like we said, about a teaspoon's worth of filling on the inside. Water around the edge. And we'll talk about square wrappers in just a moment. Again, simply fold to the top, give it a good pinch to seal it up. And then you're just really folding it onto itself. That's the move. So you're taking it and kind of folding it onto itself like that. And then you can do as many or as few of these pleats as you want. Really, the goal is as long as we have a flat surface somewhere on this that we're going to be able to crisp up, you're going to be okay. And obviously, as I mentioned before, as you're squeezing it, make sure that you're feeling around your filling. And if you do feel pockets of air, kind of slide your fingers upwards so you're forcing that out the top.
As you see, I'm standing it up tall. This way, I'm forming a flat bottom. And that's going to be what we're going to crisp up in our pan when we go to cook these. All right, so let me show you a couple other things that we can do with this. First, if you have a square wrapper, you can kind of get a little creative with it. What I like to do, actually, let me just do a really square off mine so we can play along the same context. All right, so let's say we got a square wrapper. I'm gonna do the same thing, just enough filling. So I've got about an inch border on every side. One quick second for me.
Are we getting graded on this?
Definitely.
We want pictures of everyone's final product.
Sorry about that. Okay, again, square one. I would do this a little bit differently. For a square, I would usually go corner to corner. So we're following a bit of a triangle. And then I'm actually just sliding down the edges Again, working from the filling outwards so that we're pushing all that air away. And then what I like to do is, one, you could just leave it like this and we could totally just pan sear them on their flat side. If you want to get a little fancy about it, I'll put a little water on one corner and then I'll fold that corner around to the other and squeeze the two together. And then I end up forming a pretty flat base that I'll end up putting into the pan to get really crispy. And it's almost like a tortelloni kind of vibe, but another little kind of fold to it. As I mentioned, this is really no rhyme or reason. As long as the dumplings are closed and you got a flat base to put into the pan, you're not going to go wrong. So why don't we all, why don't we all take a couple minutes and just fold as many dumplings as you possibly can. As you start getting more comfortable with it and you can move fast, the way to do a lot of these at a time is kind of one motion at a time. So what I would do is normally lay out all my dumplings, my skins. And this recipe that I gave you guys makes about 20 to 25.
Chef, quick question. I went a wrong turn with my square. I ended up with this. Is this?
That's beautiful. I love that.
All right.
Oh, that's a legitimate dumpling fold right there.
Okay.
Little 4-corner quadration going on.
So much for mistakes. Thank you.
I mean, it's the mother of invention, right? All right, so this is how I do a lot of them in kind of a quicker period of time. You kind of lay out all your fillings or lay out all your wrappers, and you do all your fillings. Then I'll water and fold each one of them. And this is kind of the backbone of even what we do in restaurants. I didn't really give you guys too much of my background there, but I spent the better part of almost 15 years working in some of the top kitchens across the US. I worked for everybody from Thomas Keller to Danielle Boulud, opening up restaurants with Chef Michael Mina across the country when I was a younger cook. And the backbone of getting through a lot of prep, which I always hear is kind of a big complaint from home cooks. It's like, how do you get through all this prep? How do you kind of get so many things on the table, all this knife work, all this stuff? One of the biggest tricks is just try to build speed by doing one thing at a time. So I put out all my wrappers, I put out all my filling, and you kind of build speed out of that repetition. And then when I just get to hyper focus on folding, same idea. I'll be able to build a lot more speed because my hands kind of start building that muscle memory. And that's where, yes.
Can we experiment and make different shapes with our dumplings?
I highly encourage you to make any size and shape you would like. You have chef's permission. The only thing I ask, though, is that you show off all of your gorgeous work after you're done with it. Sound good?
Can you freeze the unused wrappers that you have?
Yes, totally. You can freeze and thaw these wrappers almost as many times as you want. So anything left over, I would just wrap them tightly with plastic wrap in a stack. Basically, I would just take, I'm going to have a bunch of leftover ones too. I would wrap this whole thing with plastic wrap, slide it in the freezer.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's actually a great segue. So after we make all of our dumplings and we have these all laid out on this tray, if you weren't making your dumplings right now, you can easily just take this tray and slide the entire contents of it right into your freezer. Don't have your dumplings sticking or touching each other. Let them freeze solid for a couple hours, and then you could break them all down into a Ziploc bag, and these are going to hold for a long time inside your freezer. And you can cook them from frozen. So everything that we do from the second they go into the pan to the second they go onto a plate, you could do from frozen. So it's a really, really great thing that if you're going to do a lot, get the family involved, invite over the neighbors once everybody's vaccinated, and you guys can make a big production line out of it. All right. Anybody come up with some fun, interesting shapes? Oh, Jen and Ella, look at that. It's like a little beggar's purse. I love that.
Chef,
Nice. Hello.
can you show us the fold up close one more time?
Absolutely. Happy to.
Thank you.
All right, let me come along this side. All right, so I've got water along the edges. So step one is fold it to the top. Oops, sorry about that. So step one is kind of pinch at the top, so a little half moon action. And then let's see if you can follow me on this. So I'm kind of, there we go. So I'm kind of taking this edge and just folding it onto itself. And that's how you kind of form that pleat. And if it starts coming out, that's just where a little water will help things stick. And then I'm just repeating that idea of the pleat as I go down one side. And then I'm just basically repeating the process on the left side of center then.
Great.
And then same thing and repeat. And then just make sure everything's nice and pinched off. So the most important part is really when you're pinching it, you know, have a little aggression in there and make sure that everything is really getting compressed back down to ideally a single layer. And then after you do that, you end up with this nice little folds on the dumpling.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. Hope that helped. And the nice thing when you lay out all your dumpling wrappers like I did over here, it also kind of starts a clock because you don't want anything to dry out. So you really end up forcing yourself to move as quickly as you can.
I just kind of tied it up in a knot, like on one end. Will that
Okay.
structurally, will that hold up in the pan? Or?
It should. I mean,
It
I think
should?
let's choose the bottom. Let's go seam up. We'll
Yeah.
go flat side down to make sure that juices are going to want to run to the seam.
Okay.
So great, cool, that works.
So hey, Chef David, what are some different things that you've put in dumplings, or something that we probably wouldn't have
Such
guessed?
a great question. I went through a giant dumpling kick a couple years ago, and it was around the time that Super Bowl was kind of wrapping around. And luckily, I was off from work that day, so I was able to do a bunch of prep the days leading up to it. And then I actually had a couple friends reach out to commission me for extra versions of what I was planning on making. So I literally took up that mantle. It was like, what can I put inside of a dumpling that would be overtly delicious? And for Super Bowl, it ended up becoming jerk chicken dumplings and buffalo chicken with blue cheese dumplings. It was like leaning hard. That looks gorgeous. Very nice.
That sounds amazing.
And those are pretty spectacular. The jerk chicken ones especially. Fiery, spicy. I did like a little pineapple, soy kind of ponzu sauce for it to get dipped into also. Kind of cool off all that spice. So I mean, I like to think it's a vessel, right? Anything and everything that can come to mind, you can put inside there. If you got breaded chicken, you want to mix it with a little bit of tomato sauce and throw some cubed up mozzarella cheese together, or make some chicken parm dumplings. All I ask is that you invite me over for dinner.
Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna have to get creative on this now. Those jerk chicken dumplings sound amazing though.
Right? Just think of that idea. It's like you can maybe like braise a shoulder of something, or like cook off a big roast, or you know, a lot of leftover vegetables from being like roasted the night before. Chop them all down, season them all up, throw them inside a dumpling skin. Do the
Jim, that looked great.
Nice work. You know, like it really is kind of endless.
Oh, that's awesome.
So from anybody that has done dumplings before in the class, any fun experiences, stories, kitchen failures? Those are always good stories too, relating to their own dumpling adventures. So everybody's a perfect dumpling maker. I see. That's cool. I like it. Experts in the house.
I think everyone's really into making their dumplings that nobody can unmute themselves right now.
Exactly. Plus, everybody's got cornstarch probably all over their fingers from them.
Question actually about dumplings.
Please.
I've heard so much argument on the etiquette of eating soup dumplings. Do you pop it before and drink it from the spoon before you eat it, or do you put it all in your mouth? Like, what's the actual way to do it?
I love it. Great question. So from my training and experience, the move is from the steam basket onto your spoon, a bite through the top to let the steam get out so that you don't completely scald the inside of your mouth. A little bit of a sip from the spoon could start things off. So again, you don't get too much broth going on. and then down in one shot.
All right.
That's what I've always been told, and when I've sat at the table with friends that, you know, would call me out on it if I was doing it wrong, things have gone well. So I think you're pretty safe along those lines if you follow that etiquette piece.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, but you got to do that little bite into the top. It's like a little chimney action, or else who knows, that steam that's trapped inside those soup dumplings that could get you. Those are actually, it's one of the coolest dumplings I think there are out there. Oh, next to the amazing dumplings that Jen and Ella are doing over on their side. So if you don't know what a soup, yeah, it's great technique. So if you don't know what a soup dumpling is, if you go to some more traditional type restaurants, you know, Chinese style, they're using thicker dumpling wrappers, and what they've done ahead of time is made a really beautiful broth, cooled it down to the point that it actually sets firm. If anybody ever made like a really hearty chicken stock at home, you come in the next day after it's cold and it's like gelatinous and all set up hard. So they cool it off to the point that it becomes solid like that. Then they chop it up with a knife, mix it in with a filling such as like what we did now. So then you could stuff them and everything's solid going in, but then when you steam off those dumplings, that gelatin melts and you end up with a broth actually sitting inside of your dumpling. And it's just so robust, and there's just so much going on with it. It's really one of my favorite things there is out there. All right. How's everybody doing on their folding?
Should we be preheating the oven or anything?
No, not just yet. We're gonna actually do the entire process of cooking these dumplings on the stovetop in ideally a nonstick pan. But if you have a large fry pan, that'll work as well. So no need to preheat just yet.
So hey, if we were trying to do these differently, like steam them or anything, is there anything different we would have had to do?
So if you want to say steam these versus a pot sticker them, you know, then we either need a bamboo steamer or, you know, a steam basket could work too. In those situations, you're putting a little bit of water at the bottom of a wok or at the bottom of your pan. Usually you're lining your steam basket with some parchment paper or some cabbage leaves is a very traditional way of going about it, so that the dumplings as they cook don't stick to the bamboo. Then you're putting in there and just slapping a lid on top of it. And, you know, we're going to do the cool thing with this pot sticker technique is we're going to start by pan roasting. Then we're going to be adding in basically a water-based mixture. That's going to then turn this pan fry into a steam, and we're going to slap a lid on top of it and steam them out. So basically that step you could do solely by itself inside of a bamboo steamer or something along those lines. It's not really the type of thing that you could bake, but you could also just drop them like pasta into a big pot of boiling water if you wanted to forego steaming and kind of the pan frying and just treat them like, you know, kind of soup dumplings like that. That's basically how wontons. Yeah, it's really the only difference between wontons, gyozas, and pot stickers is the cooking technique. Wontons are typically cooked off in soup broth. Nice. Jen and Ella being creative. It's like a little star they got going on over there. So again, gyozas typically are steamed. Wontons are typically poached off in soup, and pot stickers it's all the same thing that we're starting with. Pot stickers then are, you know, twice cooked inside of a pan. All right, so again, our goal is about 20 to 25. So I'm just about there over on my side. How's everybody doing on their sides? Still got a little bit of, if you had some folding left to do, let me see a thumbs up. No judgments. Great, okay, cool. So let's take 2 more minutes. Let's continue our folding operation, and then we'll start cooking these babies off. I think this is my nicest one yet.
Jen and Ella are rocking it though with their shapes. I'm gonna wait until after this is all over before I do mine.
Oh, no judgments. Yeah, and as we were talking about before, if you end up having extra filling left over, it's going to hold in your fridge for a couple days. You know, you can easily probably get 2 or 3 days out of that filling. So if you wanted to fold up some more dumplings another time, you know, no pressure to have to get through it all right now. Or I've even taken leftover filling at times, done the meatball trick out of them, you know, a little bit extra cornstarch, maybe a little breadcrumb, a little bit of egg in the mix. They become really, really good. So lots of versatility you can do with this stuff. All right. So as you guys are going to see on my cooking side of things, I've got an electric stove over here, so it takes me a little bit of time to preheat my burners. So I'm actually going to take the nonstick pan that you guys see on that side. It's about a 10 to 12 inch pan, so I can fit all my dumplings in there at a time. And I'm gonna actually put my heat on. Right now I'm on medium low just to gently warm up the burner and get the pan working. And then we'll start getting into cooking these up shortly. All right. Love how hard at work and focused everybody's is.
I know this is like a calculus test. Like everybody is.
I mean, this is like one of those games where, you know, it becomes pretty meditative. You know, it's like all you got to do for the next, you know, 15, 20 minutes, hour, whatever it might be, is just sit here and fold dumplings. It's like, well, it's part of this, the reason I got into cooking professionally. Like, I love that idea of I could just hyper focus on just getting this one technique like better every day that I do it. And just this idea of repetition. Repetition leads to perfection.
So just to say it again, you know, I have these extra dumplings, these extra wrappers. I just is in plastic wrap, throw it in the freezer, right?
Yeah, I'll demo it with you right now. So I'm just gonna take this whole wrapper right here. I'm gonna leave the plastic on the outside. Again, I've got, you know, kind of half my stack. Usually these packs are about 50 each, so you should have about half it left over. And I'm just wrapping my plastic wrap all around it. So plastic wrap it up, tighten it up, try not to get any air inside there. And then I'm just gonna slide this whole contents right into my freezer. Stand by for future dumpling making. And the day before you wanna make dumplings, oh, that was great. I love that one. Just pull that out of your freezer, put it in your fridge and let it thaw out slowly overnight. If you're in a rush, you can take it out of the fridge and put it into a Ziploc bag and put it into a bowl of cold water. That'll thaw it out in probably a half an hour.
Okay, great, thanks.
You are welcome. All right, that's my last dumpling on my side. All right, so let's see where everybody's at. I think most people seeing eyeballs of a lot of people. So let's see, if you're basically there, just about done folding, why don't you give me a thumbs up? Great. Double thumbs, that just means we gotta go. Love it. Thank you, Lee. Perfect. So, all right, so we're gonna transition to getting these things cooked off. Before we start that, what I want to do is put together my slurry mixture. So as I alluded to a bit earlier, when we cook pot stickers, it's a two-stage cooking process. We're going to pan fry them first. We're going to get the side that we choose or that we chose as kind of our bottom or our flat side. We're going to get those all into the pan. We're going to cook them until they're really nicely golden brown. Then we're going to be adding in a liquidy mixture. So a little bit of precautions before we start up. When we go to add this liquid in, it might splatter a little bit. So on one hand, if you have a splatter guard, something like that, helpful. Other hand, we're gonna need a lid for this anyway to lock in all that steam. So just have it standing by because we can easily kind of add in our liquid and then throw a lid down on top of it pretty quickly. So just stand back a little bit. So again, we're gonna go from a frying stage, we're gonna add liquid into the pan. That's gonna turn things into steam. So you need to have a lid standing by that fits your pan. So we can just slap it on there. We're gonna cook it then for about 3 or 4 minutes till our dumplings are steamed through and the liquid is almost gone, almost evaporated away. Then we're gonna remove the lid. We're gonna continue to cook it until all of the liquid goes away. And because we're going to be adding a little bit of flour into the slurry mixture, we're going to cook this until we get this very thin, very delicate little lace of starch crispiness, our crispy skirt that'll kind of line the whole bottom of our pan. It's one of the reasons why I like doing this in nonstick. So again, I've got this kind of big boy nonstick pan that we're going to do this in. It helps just that starchy skirt to release from the pan that much better. Okay, so when we get into cooking like this, I do recommend, I mean, if you're ambitious, you're more than welcome to cook along with me simultaneously. If you want to see what's going to happen before you start, which is both chef's superpower, the fact that we already know kind of how things are supposed to look before we get there, feel free to watch me, watch my cooking screen, and I'm going to walk you through every step of it. All right, so to get started, we're going to crank our heat up to medium high. So my electric stove, I got about a number 7 going on here. I got my nice large nonstick pan. Everything's getting hot over there. My slurry mixture. So what we're going to use to steam out that step of our dumplings. I want everybody to take 1 cup of water. Could be cold water, could be room temp water, doesn't really matter. And we're going to whisk into it 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour. And I do recommend whisk it as you're pouring it in. If you just try to dump this in, it might clump up a little bit on you. So I like to whisk and kind of slowly work in the flour. And the flour is going to dissolve pretty quickly right in there. Keep your whisk standing by, because as this sits, as you're frying your dumplings, it might separate a little bit. The flour might settle to the bottom of the water. So then before we go back into the pan with it, you might want to just give it a little whisk up just to make sure everything's evenly dispersed. All right, so I've got my slurry mixture, we're going to call this. This is, again, our 1 cup of water and 1 tablespoon of flour whisked together. All right, let's see where we're at over here. So we're getting hot. So everybody can see my cooking screen over here. Whoop. So this is where the action is going to start happening now. So as my pan's getting hot, I'm just going to add just enough oil. So this is canola oil, so vegetable oil, grapeseed oil, canola, any neutral high heat oil. Just enough so I get a little bit of a thin layer on the bottom of my pan. So that's step 1. Step 2, I want to make sure when I'm putting my dumplings in, I'm getting some hardcore sizzle. So my pan needs a little bit more time to get hot. So I'm not going to rush this. And you can already see my slurry mixtures already starting to kind of separate and settle down a little bit. Not a big deal. Again, we're just going to keep our whisk standing by, and we'll whisk it up before it goes into our pan. Yeah, definitely not a bad thing if you see a couple, we have to call wisps of smoke coming off your pan. That's how we know that our pan is nice and hot. Doesn't need to be billowing of smoke, just light little kind of wisps.
So hey, Chef David, just to confirm, you're putting the water mixture in a separate bowl, or it's not in the pan yet?
Correct. Yeah, I got my water mixture, my slurry mixture in the separate bowl here on my cutting board right now. We're gonna pan roast these dumplings first, and then once they're golden brown on the bottom, that's when we're gonna be adding in that slurry mixture. So it's kind of a cool technique because we're going from like pan frying to start, then we're gonna add in liquid, it's gonna become steaming, and then we're gonna continue to cook it till we get rid of all that water and basically revert back to pan frying, because there's still going to be oil in the mix in our pan at that point. So here we go. Now I'm going to start putting in my dumplings. I've got some sizzle happening. One of the nice things about doing the dumplings along this shape is that you can actually tuck them in pretty close to each other. And this crispy lace that we're going to do is actually going to kind of lock everybody in together and create a pretty cool design.
Sorry, if we don't have a non-stick, should I put oil on my pan?
You're going to put oil in the pan no matter what. If you don't have a non-stick pan, not a big deal. You can totally use stainless steel for this.
And just put canola oil or just regular oil?
Yeah, canola oil. Again, high heat oil. Basically, you're going to do everything that I'm doing here. Nothing changes.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. So again, just enough oil to coat the bottom of your pan. Get it nice and hot so that you see a couple wisps of smoke coming off of it. I'm making sure I get a little bit of oil on the bottom of each of these dumplings before I settle them into their little final resting places in this pan.
Can you
That's why.
tell me the difference I've always wondered about this olive oil, canola, mazola, corn oil. What's high heat oil? I mean, if you could rank the oils from high to low, I never knew what that meant.
No, it's such a great question. So every oil, depending on where it comes from. So mazola, that refers usually to corn oil. Canola also refers to corn oil, obviously peanut oil, peanuts, olive oil from olives. They each inherently have what we call different smoke points. So those smoke points are basically saying how hot can you get your oil before the oil starts to break down and burn. Olive oil actually has the lowest smoke point of most oils. Canola oil, grapeseed oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, all have very high smoke points. That's why we always use them to pan fry, to sear, to saute at high heat. Peanut oil also along those lines. And then basically at the other end of the spectrum is olive oil, where if you start getting it too hot, it starts smoking a lot, burning, breaking down. We can get into a whole conversation about free radicals and all the nastiness that comes from broken down oil. It's kind of the reason why you never want to go to a restaurant that has one of those deep fryers where they claim they haven't changed the oil in 100 years and it's amazing. It's not. It's actually very bad for your health.
Chef David, mine's
Yes.
getting pretty brown on the bottom.
Yeah, mine are as well. So if you can see, mine are very brown on the bottom now. So this is what we're looking for, really nice and golden brown. So now we're going to take that slurry mixture. I'm going to whisk it up a little bit just to make sure everything's dispersed. And simply enough, dump it in the pan, slap a lid on top. You missed that, might have been done in the blink of an eye. But again, whisk up your slurry mixture, pour it in the pan, slap a lid on top.
Do we turn the heat down?
Nope, leave the heat as it is.
And we just want the bottom of the dumplings to be kind of golden brown before, not the rest. Just
Exactly, yeah, just that bottom level that you're playing with. And I should say, actually, if it's boiling very hard at this point, with some of your stoves you can turn it down to about medium heat. So we can go from, we were at medium high, we can go down to medium at this point.
Were we supposed to use our entire liquid slurry bit?
If you were cooking off 20 to 25 dumplings in your pan, then you could use the entire slurry mixture. If you were doing a lesser,
I think, how much did you use? About half?
I use the whole thing.
Okay.
But we still have a bunch left.
Yeah, we only used like 2/3 of our dumplings.
Oh, you still have a lot of dumplings left.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, great. So then, yeah, just do it as a relative ratio in essence. If you only are cooking a half your dumplings, use half the slurry. Third of your dumplings, third of the slurry.
That's what I told them. They didn't believe me.
Listen, Dad is always right.
So wait,
Simply put.
I missed the slurry addition. Like we were
Okay,
so
very simply enough, we put all of our dumplings in the pan. We got those really golden brown on the bottom. Once we looked at them and saw they were golden brown, I just gave my slurry another whisk just to disperse that flour in the water. Then just dump it in the pan, slap a lid on top, drop your heat to medium. Done.
Okay. And
make
somebody
sure you
asked if
stand
they're
back.
if they're doing the meatball version, should they still add the slurry to that?
Sorry, yes, for our meatballers, no need for slurries. You're just making meatballs. Pan roast them up. And then you could you could pan roast them in the pan. You could put them in the oven to help cook them through, unless you just kind of sear them on all sides and probably get there pretty close too. And then you could just dip them into your sauce and have a good time with it. We could get a little more complex. You could also add like a teaspoon of cornstarch into your ponzu. And then after your meatballs are cooked through, you can dump that into the pan with them and kind of toss them around to glaze them, and it'll thicken up nicely. Another little meatball riff you could do.
Do we cover the pan right after we've added the slurry?
As soon as you add the slurry, yes. You want to trap as much of that steam in as possible. As you can see by my side, I've got a little steam leaking out over here. No big deal. We'd like to see that. And we're going to let this kind of simmer and steam away for, about 3-4 minutes. We'll see the top of the dumplings are going to turn translucent. They're going to cook through, be super tender. And that's when we're going to remove the lid. And if there's any remaining liquid inside there, we're going to just continue to simmer it out until we start getting back to that frying phase.
Thank
Is the cooking time the same regardless of the protein you used?
Yeah, exactly. It is. the pork is going to cook through basically at the same rate that the turkey is, just because its kind of size and density is going to dictate it. If you're using tofu or straight up vegetables, you don't really have to worry about it. They're going to cook through. It's already cooked through. You got nothing to worry about in that sense. And then this same cook time and technique will get the wrapper cooked through and get us back to the crispy phase that we want to be in.
When we pull the water, should we aim that dumpling to get wet or just to the side?
I try to find like one area, just pour it straight in there, so I'm not dumping it over every single one of my dumplings. But honestly, as long as it's whisked up, it's going to be fine one way or another. I wouldn't worry too much about that. The thing is, if you think about it, once it starts steaming, everything's going to be kind of soaked down anyway. And if anything was kind of pooling on your dumplings, it should evaporate pretty quickly.
It takes a bit of time for them to be brown, right?
It's all relative to your stove and how hot your pan was when you first started. So if your pan was a little bit too cool, if you didn't see smoke kind of coming off it when you first put the dumplings in, it might take a few extra minutes to get that golden brown happening. Also, keep in mind, depending on your stove, like mine has hot spots at times with my electric stove, so I might have to rotate my pan just to make sure that the top is cooking at the same rate as the bottom. But those are kind of the slightly harder things for me to fully guide you on. It's really kind of relative to your stove and how hot you got your pan to start.
So I must ask, what kind of heat do you prefer? Do you prefer gas, electric, and conductive?
So I'm definitely, I think most chefs would agree, love gas. Gas is easily the go-to, most control over the fire itself. I think number 2 to that for me is induction. I love kind of the magnetic induction. You can boil water in less than a minute, and that's appealing to me, even though I know how the science works behind it. Yeah. Behind that, electric, I've lived in apartments for many years now, so I've learned to live with it. And there's certain things honestly that you can do with electric that you can't do with others. Like we do a class, we do a few different versions of a taco class. And I always talk about my favorite thing to do on my electric range is after I'm done like stir frying whatever I'm going to use to kind of fill my taco, pull the pan off, and then I'll grab my tortillas and just drag them across the electric element. And it's like the literally best way to toast a tortilla. Like you don't get better than that.
Yeah, I've heard that, like literally just throw it right on, or like
literally just kind of hold it by a corner, just like drag it across the element and then back the other way. It toasts it. It's like fills the kitchen with this gorgeous like corn smell. And if using flour tortillas, it just brings them back to life.
I will say that the induction is mind-boggling to me. I love it. The first time, I mean, and I'm an engineer by trade, and the first time I saw it, it was amazing. Like I was in Vapiano's. Do you know about Vapiano's?
I do not.
So Vapiano's is kind of like a fast food chain on Italian food. They actually have one in the city. And what they do is they actually have all of the pasta sides where you can literally just like choose and make your pasta right there. And like sauces, everything, whatever seasonings and additions, you can do it right on the spot.
That sounds fantastic.
So it was the first time I saw them use the induction wok, and I was like, he picked it up, touched it, it was cool, and he put it back down and it was cooking. I was like, mind blown.
Exactly. You're like, what is this voodoo? What is happening right now? I don't understand. You're like, and look, I'm not burned.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to take a little peek in on mine. So if you check out my cooking camera, let's see, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a better shot.
Oh, Chef Pope.
So we pulled this baby off, and check it out. You guys see what's happening inside of there? So it's this very kind of starchy, slurry kind of thing happening, but most of my water is gone, but everything is still very gluey looking. So so that's actually the perfect moment for us to take the lid off because we're kind of done with our steam. And now we want to continue to cook this over our medium heat. And you'll see what looks really gluey and starchy right now is gonna, as the rest of that liquid evaporates, now we're giving it a chance to evaporate. It's going to start forming this very thin, kind of crispy little lacy wafer. And we are on a road to the crunchiest, crispiest pot stickers that I think any of you guys have ever had. I'm confident enough to say that.
So if we started after you, I just put the lid on. It's about what, 4 or 5 minutes before I
Yeah,
take
it's about 3 or 4 minutes till you take the lid off. I usually just try to listen, and you can kind of hear when it's no longer really simmering and there's not a ton of liquid and boiling happening inside, and you kind of hear a little bit of frying happening. That's usually a good telltale sign when it's time to remove the lid. But also at this point, if it's been cooking for at least 3 minutes or so, you can totally peek in. And if it still looks like there's a big puddle of water still inside there, put the lid back on, let it keep going. But you're going to be steamed through basically at the top anyway. So after about 3-4 minutes, you're totally safe to pull the lid off. You're going to be where I'm at now, and you can kind of start focusing on getting the rest of it simmered out. So I'm going to pull off these spotlights for just one moment. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit tighter on this cook for you, so you guys can just see this a little bit better.
Do you flip the what is it called? Dumplings?
No, we're going to cook them on one side the entire time. The only flipping that we're going to do, sir, is going to be when we remove this from the pan.
Young Chef
right.
Pope, yes.
Love that. All right. Okay, cool. Now we're back in. So I got it a little closer for you guys so you can really see what's happening inside my pan right now. So yeah, one of my little guys fell over. No big deal. But you can see the tops are basically all translucent. Everything really looks inherently like it's cooked through. That's very important, obviously. And now again, we're just going to continue to cook. And if you look over here, that's kind of what we're starting to see. That's what we want to happen across our whole pan. This like thin, lacy, crispy thing that's going to start turning really golden brown in us.
So if it's already turning golden brown, do we just keep letting it go?
The lace you're referring to?
It's starting
So
to
no. What you want to do is once the entire, if you might have to rotate your pan to help get it even, but you might have a great stove way better than mine, I'm assuming you do. Once the entire thing has that brown, lacy crispiness, you can take a rubber spatula, and I'll show you over here. I'll start loosening it up a little bit on the edges. And once I can get around the whole thing and kind of loosen it up, I give the pan a little bit of a shake. Once I see everything's released, then you can either slide it off onto a platter, or you'll see in a little bit, I like to actually put a plate right on top, and I actually flip the whole thing. So I get the skirt side up. But once you have your skirt happening, the other way I've seen people do is just kind of break it up a little bit, and you can even just take them out kind of piece by piece. And you'll have that little skirt attached to the bottom of each one of them.
And it's actually pulling up from the sides like an omelet?
Yeah, exactly. Once this skirt starts to form and all that like slurry, kind of sludgy gluiness goes away, literally you'll see the edges of the skirt start to curl in from the pan. And that's the whole idea. It's a pot sticker because when you cook it, you're kind of forcing it to stick to the pot. And then when it's ready to go, it unsticks itself. So kind of a cool little culinary magic. So with my pan, I always know I got to kind of rotate it a bit to make sure the edges hit the burner in the right way to really get this whole thing to kind of cook through proper. So you're seeing me kind of work the edges of my pan a bit. But we are right about there. So again, if you can see, I'm going to pull this up so you guys can get a little bit closer. This skirtiness over here is really what we're looking for across everything. So if your skirt is still looking pretty white and blonde, or a little sticky and gluey like this, then just keep going. Keep going.
Excuse me, Chef?
Yes.
How do you know if the meat inside your dumpling is done?
It's such a little amount of meat that once we go through this timing process, it's done. You know, it's once you're steaming it like that and it cooked in that steam environment for about 3 minutes or so, it's such a little piece of ball that it's cooked through. Worst case scenario, sacrifice one for the greater good. Take a dumpling out, chop it in half, take a look.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome, little chef.
Chef, question. So we're at the same stage you are now, but the seams, the standing ridges on the dumplings look kind of whitish, like an undercooked pasta or al dente pasta.
So if it feels like a little papery potentially,
mm-hmm.
What I would do is add a little bit more water into the pan, slap a lid back on, and just get a little more steam going in there. And then just kind of repeat that process a little bit to cook it all out after, to cook that through.
Thank you, Chef.
You're very, very welcome. Yeah, like I have a little bit of paperiness happening on kind of the edge over here too, but not too bad. Too bad. So I'm gonna let it roll. See, so let me see what you guys are saying. Great. So if you can see this bottom corner over here, this is kind of the perfect little lace that's forming. And you can see if I take my rubber spatula, you can easily get underneath it. Like it's really not sticking to the pan at all. You see that? And that's where the magic is. That's so delicious. I'm so excited for dinner tonight. One of my favorite things about doing virtual classes. My wife and I end up having a really nice dinner. Oh, that looks fantastic, Elaine. Nailed it.
Hot.
Woo. Yeah, don't eat them right away. Let them cool off a little bit. You will scald yourself.
So hey, Chef, for the ones that are not using the non-stick pans, right? And we had the oil at the bottom.
For a few minutes, man.
Yep.
So, you know, my mixture is looking like this. I don't know if you can see it. No, the light's a little light.
Yeah, I think you're going down the right road. Again, just keep cooking it so you get that golden brown layer on the bottom. You might not be able to slide it out as easily as I am, but if anything, just break them up in between and just kind of scoop them out piece by piece, flipping them over.
Got it.
So let me show you my dismount over here. This is for all the gymnastics judges out there. So I just got my spatula underneath it. Now I've loosened up the whole pan. And you can see my dumplings are really sliding nicely. So this is what I like to do. I'm going to show you on the big camera over here. So I'll take my dumplings. I'll literally lay my plate in on top. Hand goes here. Flip it out. Oh, look at that.
Oh, that looks great.
Boom. Super crazy, crispy pot stickers. And this is one of the reasons why I like taking the time to kind of put them into my pan in like a nice, really beautiful order, that I get this nice kind of flower pattern happening around. And just how crispy this is with that little lacy skirt on the bottom. Oh, very excited.
Excuse me, Chef?
Yes, please.
How do you prevent your dumplings from burning?
Temperature control. Before they get too dark, you lower your heat down or pull your pan off the heat to slow down the cooking process.
Okay, but so like if you're doing multiple batches and your pan gets like that brownness in the bottom, should you wipe it out between batches?
Yeah, totally. Exactly. A couple paper towels, wipe it out, dump it out, add some fresh oil into the pan, and you'll be good to go. I'm pinned right now. I'm just gonna pull off this spotlight just for 1 second. It's a weird thing. It doesn't let me zoom in on my camera when I'm on spotlight. There we go. Now we'll go back to it.
Starting to see what you're talking about, Chef. Now,
starting to release a little bit.
I said I'm starting to see what you're talking about. As it's getting golden, it's starting to like detach from the pan.
Exactly. So that's where, you know, to the question before, you know, you got to kind of watch your pan. Things are getting too dark, too quick. It feels like things are moving too fast. Just like relationship. Just lower the heat, slow things down a little bit, take your time, get to know your dumplings a little bit better.
I'm sorry, is that advice for the children?
Exactly. So there we go. All right, I cannot wait to see how everybody else's dumplings came out. Thank you. I appreciate that. I thought that worked out well.
I didn't have a non-stick pan, but the dumplings are really sticking to the pan. Any advice? They're gonna break.
Is the skirt golden brown yet?
Yeah, they are, but the top still needs a little bit of cooking, but the skirt is like sticking.
So the skirt is typically going to stick until it really gets golden brown. It can really kind of peel itself off. If the top isn't fully cooked yet, though, as you said, I think you need to put another maybe half cup of water into the pan, get that up to a boil, put a lid on top, and steam them a little bit further.
Okay, and they might detach a bit better after once they're Okay.
They might, yeah. Sometimes adding that little bit of water in there too helps kind of release things a bit. But worst case scenario, I would just take a metal spatula, one of these kind of like burner situations, and just try to kind of work in and kind of get below it. If you scrape on the pan a little bit to get underneath it, it should release without breaking.
Okay, I'll try. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Do you think this is a sign of temperature control or impatience? Do you see that?
It's like potentially both.
Okay.
So yeah, a little bit is temperature control. It's kind of, you got to watch it and make sure that you're keeping an eye on it so it doesn't get too dark on you too quickly. So again, dropping the temperature down just to slow things down helps. But yeah, it looks like you just got a little bit far on you. I'm sure it's still delicious on the inside though. And now you have something to conquer.
Good.
Great time to try it again.
How long do we need to let them cool?
Just a minute or two. I'd feel safe to jump into mine at this point. I'll share with you. Oh, look at that. This is what I love. Check it out. They're all like attached together.
Jeff, can we eat those now?
Yes. Do it. We'll do it
Irene,
together.
yours look great.
Beautiful steamed dumpling, super crispy crust. Yum. Let's do it. Dip into our sauce. Do not forget about your beautiful dipping sauce you made. Yeah. The crunch is literally audible. Like you could feel the crunch going through your jaw.
Good.
All right. Fantastic. I was saying, thumbs up if you love your dumplings. I know I love my dumplings. Yes, good, happy people. Well, if there's any other questions I can answer for you guys, please fire them at me, or else I'm going to kick things back over to Vince. Though he looks focused on his dumplings right now, so I might need to keep spieling and kicking it for a little bit.
Thank you.
How do you freeze, or what do you do with, how can you save all the ginger?
Oh, save any extra ginger?
Yeah, can you freeze this, or what's the best way to keep ginger?
Yeah, I mean, ginger, as long as it's still got the peel on and everything, and if it has a couple exposed sides, I would just wrap it in some plastic wrap. You could put that in your fridge. It'll last for easily a week, if not a little bit longer. Or what I like to do, if I get a lot of ginger, because sometimes it comes really inexpensively in big amounts, I'll peel it, I'll chop it down, I'll freeze that on a tray so that it all kind of freezes separately. And then again, I'll break it down into a little Ziploc bag, keep that in my freezer, and then you can just drop pieces right into your tea when you're feeling like little ginger tea or things like that. That's kind of my favorite way to go.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
How do we store these if we don't eat them all?
So if they're already been cooked,
Send them to us. We'll take care of them.
Yeah, that's probably the best idea. Yeah, knock on your neighbor's door and just drop them off outside. You can put them into a little airtight plastic containers, glass containers, put them in the fridge. You can eat these cold, just like, a similar cold dumpling would be, for another couple days. If you have leftovers that you didn't cook that you want to hold on to, they should go into your freezer. Dumplings, fresh pasta, things like that, they don't hold up well in the fridge. They just get soggy as they sit. So definitely into your freezer on a tray like I showed before. Let them freeze solid. Then again, break them down to a Ziploc bag, put a date on them, and you can hold on to them for a long time to come.
These are delicious.
Good. You're very, very welcome. Thanks for cooking along with me, everybody.
What's for dessert? You get dessert with the deal?
That's the next activity, guys.
Yeah. So again, thank you everybody for your time. My name is David Kirschner. Again, my business is Dine DK, that's DINEDK, private dining. Love to check you guys out or cook along with you guys with other classes. But more than anything, thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. And STO, keep on doing the amazing work that you guys do. I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chef David, thank you so much for walking us through this today. Learned so many different tricks. Every time I'm sitting here with ginger, I'm going to use a little teaspoon now. So can't wait to eat these dumplings. And everyone, I hope you had a lot of fun. And if you haven't already, I want to remind you, please continue to donate. SEO is a great organization trying to do a lot of good things in the community. So, you know, there are so many New Yorkers that need our help, especially through this pandemic. So if you could text SEO Strong to 243-725. All right. And be on the lookout for the next event that's coming up in the spring. All right, everyone, have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you,
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was great.
Thank you. Thank you.